So we welcome you at our online panel discussion by Startup Leaders Club, which unites inspirational leaders of innovation and drivers of change of different industries, parts of the world and backgrounds, mostly serial entrepreneurs and VC investors and moderators and co-moderators. And today we discuss business model pivots in the new normal, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I will start with a brief introduction of our today's panelists. Sharon, could you please join us? You're muted.
Hello, sorry about that. There's always one, isn't there? My name is Sharon Parsi and I'm co-founder of SafeToNet. I'm also CEO of the SafeToNet Foundation. We're an AI company that exists to keep children safe online. And so this is a problem, unfortunately, that everyone already knows about. It's dealing with cyberbullying, sexting, abuse, aggression, and children struggling with mental and well-being issues. So we use artificial intelligence, natural language processing, behavioral analytics to detect risk on children's devices, to be able to help parents understand the world they live in. And be able to parent them more effectively with more insight.
Thank you very much for that vital information for also society and community. And Leon, could you also introduce yourself and your initiative with the machine learning?
Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Leon Eisen. I'm PhD in physics, and for the last 20 years, I was working in development and sales in health tech industry. So I'm inventor of the world's first FDA-cleared pulse oximetry monitor working at wrist, only at wrist, with all sensors at wrist. And I'm founder of the Occitan Medical, CEO and founder of Occitan Medical. This is the world's first company that delivers remote continuous care for patients with severe chronic diseases. And COVID-19 helped us a lot to understand how to build, how to use our data and build environment that enables to predict and prevent any exacerbation of patients having respiratory failure. And we're using artificial intelligence. I wouldn't say artificial intelligence, I'd say neural networking, deep learning, to build patient baseline out of data we collect every second during patient journey in his disease. And we identify and notify automatically on any deviation that happens for these patients, whether this is deviation of his health status, behavioral status, compliance status, and more. Nadia?
Thank you, Leon. And Brady, would you also introduce yourself, and why is this topic so interesting and important for you, such as artificial intelligence and machine learning?
That's a good question. Yeah, my name is Brady. I'm with Ship Me Tires. We're a wholesale distribution company that focus around the tire industry. We've pivoted into some very unique directions as a company. And one of the things that most people don't think of when you think of tires is artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. You know, having been in the tire industry for a number of years in global distribution, you know, it was really obvious that in the process of enhancing those supply chains and the way they're established, we have to leverage the technologies out there that are innovating the way we do business with one another. And so what we're looking to do is to continue growing in that way and really showing not only our competitors, but our partners, how we can best change the way the industry works. And that also plays a vital role in the way we've changed our direction and focusing on more sustainable methods of business when it comes to like a highly polluted product like tires.
Thank you, Brady. And Sharon, would you share if you experience any time of any specific paradigm shift in terms of COVID-19 on your technology, your business, and what future changes do you plan for your own company and your foundation?
So we're still in effect a startup stroke scale up. We've been going for about 5 to 6 years, and we were a B2B2C, selling to mobile network operators, handset manufacturers, edtech companies, because it's volume and velocity. The more children that use our technology, the more accurate our algorithms become. Of course, COVID-19 has slowed down an already glacial paced decision-making process of the type of customers that we're looking to attract. And so we also began to see that our data that we generate, which analyzes the patterns of behavior of risk to children, was a really interesting, it was going through a change as a result of lockdown and COVID. And we were able to, we're based in London and we have offices in San Francisco and Cologne. So we were able to approach the British and German governments to show them the increased risk that children were showing as a result of being homeschooled, spending much more time online with their parents working from home, trying to do their emails simultaneously and supervising them less. So we became more of a consumer-focused business, and we were able then to engage more closely with governments. So the governments became a B2B partner, if you like, rather than customer. We were able then to use engage our foundation, our charitable foundation, to be able to reach out to governments and raise our profile, although not in a commercial way, but we really changed the dynamics of our business model in response to the difficult environment that families are living in. I mean, throughout the world, it's been the same in every country. So, I mean, that's the main difference in our business.
Thank you, Sharon. And Leon, so what do you highlight the differences between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how this augmented learning is affected in your business?
So for example, before COVID, we relied on selling devices, and subscription to our SaaS capabilities, SaaS services were the small part of our business model. And because of COVID, we made some shift. And today we think that the next stage, we will put more weight on subscription, because we add more and more intelligent capabilities into our platform. And maybe finally, we even will be able to just give up our devices for free for measurements, and to build business model around services, microservices, and mostly artificial intelligence services. But here I would like to just underline that there is a huge misinterpretation about what is it artificial intelligence for healthcare. And I would never be, I don't believe that in future artificial intelligence will replace physician decision about surgery, for example. I will not accept surgery invitation from machine. And today in healthcare, artificial intelligence mostly focus on some diseases or something that based on imaging, some medical scans, pathology, eye exams, colonoscopy. So where artificial intelligence could be really applied and deliver some value. But you cannot apply artificial intelligence to diagnose something or based not on imaging, on some symptoms or something like this. Sometimes it doesn't work, it's too complicated. So in healthcare, I wouldn't talk about artificial intelligence. I would talk about augmented intelligence, because everything what we are doing in healthcare just in order to help physicians and clinicians to decide, to make decision. So we can apply some neural network algorithm, how to accelerate this decision, how to present data in a better way, but will never replace physicians. So it will never be artificial intelligence. It's augmented intelligence mostly. So this is my 5 cents to add into this subject.
And if we talk about sustainability of projects with augmented intelligence in telemedicine and healthcare, life sciences, tech, so what would be your recommendation for startup leaders, serial entrepreneurs, when they incorporate this technology and into their business model? What's important to keep in mind while developing?
First of all, it's important, like in any business, to focus on low-hanging fruits. And this is business processes in healthcare. So because there you can apply real artificial intelligence to, for example, to build appropriate and optimize workflow in the hospital, or optimize workflow, just where to send, how to identify COVID people, patients, and where to send them. So here artificial intelligence could help, but it's mostly processes. It's not real healthcare. It's processes around this. But where a real artificial intelligence could work, in which processes? I think it's genomics and new drugs discovery. So everything that belongs to some computational biology, I would say, artificial intelligence could have inevitable role to advance this practice and to advance research and development. But again, this is something that belongs to computer, not to people. People just gives you genome, and computer makes all activity to identify diseases. And I believe in future, you can, based on artificial intelligence, you can ask some kid and identify all your historical, I mean, coming from your heritage diseases, and to treat it before it happens. Nadia?
Yeah, and the final question to you as well. So what do you think is important for venture investors while selecting projects with artificial intelligence, augmented machine learning? So what would be your advice in that, in fundraising for startups?
I think it depends what venture capitalist is. If you have very money and time-consuming project like genomics, like drug delivery, so you have to apply to corresponding investors who invest in this stuff. But if you are working about processing around processing and processes in healthcare, it's I think 80% of all investors are ready to hear you and finally to invest if there is a very good opportunity to make business here. So just it's important to show track record, to show result, and to prove KPIs. Nadia?
Yeah, thank you. And actually, we continue with Brady. So what would be your recommendation in terms of your sector? How to sustain and succeed in the new reality and imply these technologies and to be cost effective as well and lean in your operations?
Sure. I mean, one of the strongest recommendations that I think of has a lot to do with who we define as our new way of who we decide our new way of business is going to be with. So for us, you know, being in the industrial, agricultural, and you know, construction and everything like that, OTR products, we're focusing and catering a lot to commercialized products, things that support a lot of the infrastructure, you know, nationally. So when we're selling and working with businesses like that, what we like to help service the way that they're going to be using the products that we're bringing to them. So when we're allocating something that's on shipment to them, you know, having a sound. Can you hear me fine? Am I there?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Dropped for a second, sorry. No, what I was saying is when you have these solid connections there, what happens is we now are basically finding ourselves as the identifier of weak points within the supply chain for our partners, and that ultimately creates a support function for us. And with the use of the aggregated data that we continue to collect, we see this as like a great opportunity to implement more and more useful data, not only to the partners that we work directly with, but the ones that are also manufacturing the products, these natural rubber products that people are using to support infrastructure. So basically what I'm saying is, as we collect more and more of this data, we're able then to support the people that are handling the R&D for manufacturing various products of large name tire brands. And so then they basically have a better and greater understanding of not only their product, but also how their product's being used in different terrains and environments globally. And that also then transfers into the retail side for end users, because now what you have is the ability for not only the tire industry to benefit from the aggregated data from the products that we're collecting and sharing on these models, but then allow for those retail users to better understand or use their tires on their vehicles. And so all of it really just feeds one another within the process. And we're basically becoming more and more of a provider of a very utilized technology that's known in a lot of industries, but in our industry, it's less utilized. So my greatest recommendation is to, one, focus on either, you know, an end user category or, you know, business to business model in the commercial segment. And then be sure that you're focusing on technologies that are innovative, that are not being utilized to its fullest extent currently in our industry. So being able to be a support function for your partners and the you know, the ones that are supplying the products to begin with, obviously lends itself to a lot of useful data that can be better served. And you don't worry about the risk that you may have in the medical field in the same manner when it comes to this, because we're trying to ultimately fix a lot of issues that are currently been labored on in the tire industry.
Thank you. And Sharon, what's the role of big data in your solutions? Do you gather this and how do you use it? And do you have any risk management issues connected to that?
So that's a really important question, a really good question for us, because we're all about the data. That gives us a huge differentiator and makes us completely unique in this market. No other organization or company is analyzing, we analyze risk, not the messages that children are sending and receiving, and that's really important. There are very stringent GDPR and data privacy regulations in the UK and the States, and we have already socialized our business and our data management with the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK and past. But that is what allows us to get the edge and to be able to look at the patterns of behavior of children and look at their risks, to be able to predict, to be able to talk to government, to be able to measure impact, to be able to deliver insights to parents. And Leon, what you said earlier resonates with me, because we don't take the place of the parent. We will never do that. What we do is provide insights using data and artificial intelligence and machine learning to give the insights to help parents make decisions, to help governments make decisions, and to help mobile network operators and handset manufacturers make decisions and provide technology to children that is safe out of the box. And that's really important. That's what we do.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And Johnny, would you introduce yourself and join our panel today?
Yes, I apologize. I was in the wrong link, and it's been a heck of a morning here. I'm at my parents' house in northern Wisconsin, and we have a little baby. And it's probably better that I wasn't on the panel this morning because his name's Arlo, and he has not been in good spirits this morning, screaming bloody murder. So nice to be in everyone's company this morning.
Could you introduce your company and why machine learning is important for that, as well as artificial intelligence, and what topics you would like to highlight today in our conversation?
Yeah, sure. So I am co-founder of a startup called Burn. It's BRRR, and it's three R's. We launched in 2018, and we are the world's first cool temperature fitness studio. So we exercise people in a giant refrigerator in the Flatiron neighborhood of Manhattan, New York. It's 50 degrees. It's about 10 degrees Celsius. This was pre-COVID. We're building basically a lifestyle brand. Since COVID, we have pivoted. I'm very fortunate. We have been future-proofing our company with a slide board. So one of our fitness class, we do group fitness, kind of like Soul Cycle, or I think Barry's Boot Camp is in the UK as well. So we have this slide board. So it's 6 feet by 2 feet. So it's about, I think, 2 meters by, oh gosh, a quarter of a meter long and wide. And machine learning, AI right now, I think for us, like what, how am I connecting this, parlaying this is we're now doing direct to consumer. So we pivoted very quickly. We're manufacturing and making these slide boards out of Chicago, Illinois, and now the world is our oyster. So it's all now going to be driven by data, where our advertising is going. And I think that's what's really interesting is, and I apologize if I've missed some of the beginning part of this conversation, but I'm fascinated by, the Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest algorithms, just the different many ways we can advertise. And so, for example, we're running ads right now in our own backyard. But the question we have to ask ourselves, we don't have a budget like Peloton, where a small startup is. Where do we go next, right? What data is going to help us understand what markets we should target, who our consumer is? Do we want people that are currently fit and are living an active lifestyle, or do we want people that aspire to be fitter? And so it's accessing agencies, companies, think tanks to kind of understand where we should spend our monies.
Thank you, Johnny. And Leon, what about big data in healthcare? It's quite a sensitive topic, I think, and I would like you to address that.
What is this big data? Everything what we see around is a big data. Genomics is a big data. So without big data, you cannot build neural networks. So and we don't know where there is how to separate. There is a limit of big data. There is no limit of big data. Our universe is big data. So actually, all data that we're collecting, for example, in an everyday our patients' everyday use of our product, and they data flows all the time into our portal, and this data get collected, get analyzed, and then some decision support get realized if something happens. So actually we play with big data, so-called big data. We play with data, physiological data of the patient. And the main difference, what was before, even a couple of years ago, even today it happens many times, people just, again, coming to low-hanging fruit. So there are very simple telemedicine and monitoring devices and monitoring platforms that just take measurements every day, once a day, like from fingertip pulse oximeter, blood pressure monitor, once a day measurement. And they pledge, we have big data and we make prediction out of this. My question, how? So it's important to have at least continuous monitoring, maybe once a minute, once a 5 minutes, I don't know. ICU has big data. And now things start changing, and some companies who rejected us maybe half a year ago because they said, no, it's too expensive, we don't need every second data, we need once a day is enough. They come to us back and said, okay, it's not enough, it's not enough. We applied all possible algorithms that usually apply to big data, and it doesn't work. We want a continuous of data, and this will help. So this is my approach to big data, our company approach, and we're here waiting for our customers who really understand the issue of big data and what big data could really make for them, and not just separate episodic data that they mistakenly consider like big data.
Thank you, Leon. And Sharon, what are the key challenges and opportunities in your business currently in terms of probably new solutions emerging during the COVID?
Well, we're a company with a really social mission. And I do think that purpose and profit can coexist. If we keep children safe brilliantly, then we'll make a lot of money for our shareholders. I mean, the threats themselves to children aren't changing during COVID-19. Children are just much more accessible. And I think the world doesn't realize just how dangerous it can be for children having absolutely unlimited access to the internet while their parents are trying to get their emails done and work from home, and they're sitting in the next room learning online. For us, it's more about educating the public. And as a startup, when you don't have a big budget, Johnny, I have to say what you say resonates. It's very difficult when you're a new concept to even know for the world to search for you in the first place, because nothing like you ever existed before. That's always been our challenge. It hasn't changed. But I think the risk and the damage done is increasing during COVID. And it's a sort of silent damage because children aren't shouting out that this is happening to them. And parents don't make a big thing. I mean, you can't get on the TV and have a case study of a poor child who's been exploited online. I mean, you just can't do that. And people keep these things to themselves. I mean, unlike, we hear a lot in the news here in London about domestic abuse, you know, and some brave women are coming out talking about how being locked down has made their lives an absolute misery. But you don't, with families and with children, that's not possible, and children don't have a voice. So, I mean, we don't want to be a company that's broadcasting fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because that doesn't help. But definitely COVID has magnified a global issue, which has always been battling against this freedom of speech, you know, social media platforms who seem to be able to produce the most amazing algorithms for advertisements, as we were mentioning earlier. And yet, you know, nothing seems to be able to be done about sexual predators, abuse, aggression, and violence. So for us, it's been, I suppose COVID is increasing the problem. It doesn't help us sell our solution, but at some point, governments are going to have to take action, because, you know, it's going to come, it just comes out in the wash. And there is a responsibility for mobile network operators, telcos, to actually do something. Children should be able to access technology that is safe before it's given to them. And that should be a basic human right.
Hey, Johnny, I just wanted to say hi to everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Johnny and I seem to be in the same house.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. That's funny.
Steve, would you introduce yourself and while joining the panel from the same house with Johnny?
Hi, happy to introduce myself. I'm Steve Massour. I am a corporate and intellectual property attorney at Basis. I started doing early stage deals at the beginning of the internet about 30 years ago in '94. I've gotten, I went down the rabbit hole in crypto around 2015, a little late to the party, but certainly having a lot of fun with it. And I've done a really wide variety of different startup companies. I sort of never left it. That was my passion. I started out as an entertainment lawyer, working with bands and filmmakers, and I just kind of moved into the internet in '94 and worked with a bunch of early stage internet entrepreneurs, some of whom you've heard of, and have done a lot of different companies. Shazam is one of my big wins. Have a bunch of serial entrepreneur clients, and our firm MGA is in two offices, New York and LA. We have a very international practice. I don't know why. I think it's because I've just always liked international businesses. And so that's what I brought in, and my partners have brought in a lot as well. And so it's a boutique firm that works on early stage companies. It's soup to nuts. So we do the corporate finance kind of rinse repeat deals that Wilson Sonsini and Fenwick and Cooley do, but we also do a wide range of other corporate work and commercial work. And the commercial work, I think, is what's relevant here, because we're talking about the post-COVID environment. And it's been, what I'm interested in talking about are the opportunities. Everybody's talked about the problems of COVID, but I mean, it's a change. And whenever there's a change, there's room for entrepreneurs to create value. So I think there's a lot of room to create value. And it's just very interesting, the new technologies that have been adopted because of COVID.
Thank you, Stephen. And what would you say about artificial intelligence, machine learning trends across your clientele? So what are the key issues they address to your firm? So if any.
Okay, well, we as a firm, now we're a pretty young firm. I mean, I started my practice in '94, and that firm continued for 20 years until I sold it. But this firm, we didn't start until 2016. And one of the basic tenets we started upon is the understanding that our industry, the legal profession and other professional industries, will be very affected by machine learning and AI. All of the things that we do that are sort of rinse repeat operations can be done by AI. And we adopted new technologies. We get our invoices out, without fail at least once a month, which is different than other firms. I've even gotten an annual invoice from a firm, which early in my career in the '80s I used to get, but gee, it's been a long time since anybody waited a year to invoice me these days. And so that's how it affects our industry. And we've been trying to stay ahead of that. That's been an interesting entrepreneurial learning experience for me, because, my failure as somebody who can call a win, I feel like I'm good at calling wins for new technologies and new businesses. What I'm bad at is timing. And I'm always too fast. I always think that things are going to happen more quickly than they do. So with AI and machine learning, it's actually been very slow to kind of displace massive law firms, but I think it will eventually displace massive law firms. Now that's just our business, one business in many. We are working with a lot of companies that are adapting and using AI and machine learning technologies. In my opinion, they're very young, these technologies, and the use of them is sort of easy to understand. But I'm in the Elon Musk camp that this technology is extremely dangerous, and we have to be very careful about how we deploy it and about losing control of it. We really need to keep control if we want the human race to continue. And it sounds apocalyptic for me to say that, but now that we've actually experienced a global business shutdown, I think we know that anything's possible.
Thank you, Stephen. And Brady, do you feel do you actually encounter any difficulties or challenges while implementing this artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies into business? And what are your key highlights on that?
Yeah, I think one of the most greatest things to highlight would be that, I'm not the AI expert. That's why I allocate a lot of that expertise within our team. But learning about how we can implement these things is really cool and unique. And I think that that's probably, I think, my largest as a company. That's our largest obstacle. But what Sharon and Stephen both highlighted just a second ago really resonates well with me. COVID definitely highlights a lot of the issues or problems that go unnoticed or unspoken, and it gives actually an opportunity for people to speak to things that really have been talked about all along, but just maybe not noticed as much. And Stephen mentioned how that all of this, rather than focusing on the problems, are showing a lot of opportunities. And in the tire industry, it's really no different. I can tell you, I never thought that focusing on, an e-commerce to the wholesale distribution aspect, supporting independent tire dealers, would ever lead to sustainability when we're taking a waste product that we're helping the state of Texas with and circumventing all of the waste and pollution that's caused by the highly polluted product and putting it into the hands of recyclers on that natural rubber that break it down to its natural compounds like rubber and steel, and then are supporting the infrastructure needed within the local area. So all of that really is great because we're providing a service that leads to more jobs and opportunities. In addition to that, the touchless service, because the reality is it's tires, it's a physical product. We're able to actually leverage what we're doing to support people that right now are looking for work in a way that they don't have to worry to the degree that maybe you would at a local grocer or some other business, because we're dealing with an end of life product that is a highly waste and polluted toxic product that can cause really bad fires. The fire marshal knocks on all these tire dealers' doors, telling them they need to clean out the products, regardless of if they have sales. They have the products there. So we actually provide a service that encompasses, the one reselling the product, the one that needs to get the product out of the way, the one that wants to utilize the raw materials and resources that come from that product. And then, of course, also I see us as somebody that's helping the community a lot better. But who would have ever thought that you'd get into that? My focus, was to sell tires. I'm procuring products from overseas in Europe and Asia, and bringing it here to the local state here in Texas. Never would have thought that that would be a thing, but after actually post COVID, it became so obvious that this side business that we were helping with actually becomes a larger portion of our business. And what better than to actually support a community and people that maybe need a voice or some help. And so I think Sharon and also Stephen highlighted it best in the fact that this is highlighting problems, but they're really opportunities when we really look at what we're best at and how we can help.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing regarding how you manage the COVID situation. New York, which is where I've been for the last 30 years, is a place where every 5 years a big disaster happens. Pretty much if you look back in history, you can see that. My first was September 11th, and I lost my office. Nothing to cry about, and nobody died. Everybody was okay. But it did destroy my business. And I didn't let the business die. We went from 13 lawyers doing internet IPOs down to 2 lawyers kind of like eating snails and cockroaches to survive. And I was lucky to have Shazam during those years, because we did 475 what we called at the time porting agreements to port the Shazam product to different mobile phones prior to the release of the iPhone. And that was one of the things that helped us survive through what I call the Valley of Death. Now, the Valley of Death, every business every business faces the valley of death, startup or not. And if you're a startup, you're facing it with fewer resources. So your chances of dying are greater. So what I learned, it took me a long time to learn it. I'm going to try to give it to you now. After September 11th, I wasted a lot of time. I kind of took 12 months to worry about what was happening, look at the news, talk to people, all the things you've been doing during COVID, where people talk about where is the latest outbreak. The bottom line is none of that stuff matters for your business. It really does not. You can decide that it's important, but it's not important for your business. And whatever you delay doing with the time that you spend doing that still has to be done tomorrow. So that was my biggest lesson from all of these bad things that have happened, and really focusing on the opportunities. A business that we're working with now is a competitor to Zoom called Ninja. Now, Zoom technology has existed for over 10 years. So back to my timing issue. It's just that nobody really used it like we do now. And then suddenly there was a reason for us all to use it all the time. And everybody from the youngest child to the oldest grandmother now knows how to use Zoom in the last 6 months. And the reason is because it became compelling and they needed to, not because the technology was invented. So when you look at AI and machine learning, these are terms that we use. Really, we just use them as buzzwords to raise money. I mean, honestly, that's what most entrepreneurs these days have done. They put it in their business plan and they say machine learning and AI, and people write them checks because they think that it means something. It means nothing until it becomes a compelling thing that needs to be used by a group of consumers or businesses. So I think when we look at COVID, the opportunity that's presented is that data becomes super important. And if you look at, the outbreak data, I mean, I think let's all agree, it's all wrong. It's all wrong. I was in Utah for part of COVID, and most people were more or less ignoring all of the sort of safety rules for COVID. And not that many people got sick in Utah, frankly. Then suddenly one guy in a factory got a bunch of people sick, and now Utah is like a supposed hotspot for COVID, where like you can't fly into New York and without quarantining for 14 days. But the bottom line is there were many, 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 many more COVID cases prior to that outbreak that were not measured at all. And we all know it. There was no measurement in February. There was some measurement in March. We just don't know the data. And this machine learning and AI technology is going to allow us to know the data. So what are the opportunities that come from that? That's really what my question for the panel is.
Can I jump in here? I think that's kind of one of the pivot points for us, because we do gather this sort of data, and COVID has absolutely shown spikes that children are have been much more vulnerable, and we have seen cyberbullying absolutely skyrocket at the beginning of lockdown, and with that comes our mental well-being issues for children. So we gather dark thoughts, as we call them, and there's a correlation between cyberbullying and dark thoughts. We've been able to show to the government that children have been excessively vulnerable, and of course sexting has been happening all day long amongst children in the UK and Germany. As children as young as 6 have been sexting, can you believe? And so this data allows us to go, unquestioning data, look, here it is, time to take action. And I think, that is the big kind of impact of COVID on us, that it has shown a massive change and risk to children online with the data.
Thank you, Sharon. And Johnny, do you have anything to comment on your segment? What are the challenges and opportunities emerging from the use of artificial intelligence technology and machine learning?
Yeah, no, thanks. But this is a fun discussion. so and just it's great. So thank you guys for letting me be part of this. So interesting. My background is in public health. So Stephen, actually, I lived in New York for 11 years. It wasn't the pandemic that kicked us out. It was the baby and the 5 flights of stairs in the East Village every day, plus the pandemic that kicked us out. So we're now with my in-laws. But my background,
Needle Park outside.
yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah. But so I worked for former Mayor Bloomberg in New York City. I served on his obesity task force. And what's interesting is I worked on what's called I was part of the built environment program. And built environment is how space and how we design buildings and how policy affects everyone's access to healthy behavior. So specifically healthy eating and healthy movement, daily doses of physical activity. And so we're talking about an AI machine learning world. But what's interesting is we can't not look though at the actual physical world. And it's what are we doing right now? What is keeping us safe? It's an actual physical behavioral intervention. It's social distancing. It's
Right.
not science right now. So we got to stick to our guns. And this has been historically the case. This is how we beat cholera, typhoid, yellow fever, all these infectious diseases we beat literally through built environment interventions. The best examples are all the ones I just said ran rampant in New York City from I don't know if you guys are watching Hamilton. It goes all the way back from 1776 all the way to the early 1910s, 1920s. Penicillin wasn't created until about 1928. It wasn't in production until the 1940s. But if you look at the data, infectious disease dropped precipitously in the 30s before penicillin was being manufactured and disseminated because of these built environment interventions. What are these? Oh, well, we figured out that, cholera is sourced in water. So we stopped sourcing our water locally. That's why New York City, there's the Croton Aqueduct. That's where we get all our water. It comes down. That's why our pizza tastes really good because it gets all the minerals, just like in Rome. We know that a lot of vector-borne diseases and other diseases are killed by sunlight. So we started to build our buildings off of the street a little bit, and they had to be coated such that they had more windows, and that just overnight a whole host of infectious diseases dropped. We built Central Park. We started cleaning our streets. Just all these things. So the kind of my thesis here is at the end of the day we are social animals, and we're we're super cyborgic right now with our cell phones and everything, but it's the physical interaction that is going to win at the end. And so I think it's this dichotomy, it's this relationship. Now getting off of my soapbox, kind of talking about everyone's industry, I just even parlaying with you, Sharon, with kids' health, like they need physical activity. We're thinking of ways of getting, I now own a slide board business, really, right? Product lifestyle company, pivoting, making do with the current situation. We think there's an opportunity to send slide boards to parents or to work with partnerships with school districts to have them buy slide boards. And we actually have an on-demand. We filmed 60 videos like Peloton during these 3 months of COVID. We called our videographer. We did a 3-camera setup, and we just crushed. Amazing.
Good on you. That's great. Kept working.
And just kept working. So we think there's an opportunity with kids. That's chapter 2. That's this fall, and that's a great way to harness the technology, get kids on their phones for the right reasons. And we got to keep going with this flowing river. There's a lot of crappy stuff out there, but you just got to work with it. So
Excellent. That's amazing. I just wanted to mention another, it's very unrelated, but another just creative approach. There's a show on Netflix called The Blacklist with James Spader. And James Spader is a very well-known actor, but he's also somebody who likes bit actors and bit comedians that are in LA. And there's a lot of them in LA. And he integrated the scripts of his show to include them. They are all of the sort of side characters in his shows that are not in the main show. So when COVID broke out, obviously Hollywood got shut down, and it was really of great concern to many people there. How am I going to survive? I can't act. We can't do productions right now because they involve bringing people into the same room. But I think what Blacklist did was pretty brilliant. They decided to do the last season as an animated season, which kept everybody employed. Think about that. They all are going to just get voiceover employment acting in the last season of this thing, which has not stopped production. And I think that's the way we have to think about the COVID situation, is what opportunity do we still have to make money, or even to make more money from the COVID opportunity.
Thank you, Stephen. And now we go to the final round of key messages from each of our panelists today to address our audiences, which are mostly serial entrepreneurs and VC investors into early stage startups. Sharon, what would you like to address for investors to select the startups during this time, startups based on artificial intelligence and machine learning? And what would you advise for entrepreneurs, for their businesses to not only to survive, but to succeed in the new normal?
Goodness, the $65 million question. Well, I can only speak from our own experience. And I think it's a time when people are frightened, certainly from the UK and in London. People are worried. Most people are frightened. People are it's a time when people are more caring. I think there's a feeling of compassion and kindness that I have never kind of noticed or seen before. I don't feel it's a time for companies to be mercenary. I mean, for us, it's been a time to raise our profile, to gain traction. We've been giving through our foundation millions of licenses free for life via the German and British governments, in the hope that further down the line that gets our brand much well established, and that that we benefit because there's more and more children growing up. But I feel that it's a time for companies, if possible. Certainly, we're all commercial, but it's a time to bear in mind that it's good to be compassionate. And I think in terms of investors and VCs, given that we've all had to throw the rule book away, pivot our businesses, and sometimes do things that are completely different, I think they have to be open-minded. They have to throw their rule book away as well and look deeply at the people that run the business, their commitment, their mission, and see the changing world that surrounds us, and keep investing in young businesses and startups, because we need you now more than ever to keep us alive. And all of these great ideas and young, startups, they need you. So I think that would be my appeal.
Thank you, Sharon. And Brady?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important to have a strong motivation to do things for the right reasons. And I think for us, one of the biggest things we've always tried to carry on is the effort of caring for and cultivating good people and services. So when we're doing that, and that's a core belief in the way we do things, what we tend to find is that we're attracting what we need, which is a cash flow and revenue. And just speaking to what is typically most important to people. However, I think it never diminishes the importance of taking care of what matters most, which is ultimately making sure and ensuring that the people that you bring on to work with you are people that are better for it. And that's from a employer-employee perspective to a customer to customer standpoint. And ultimately, anybody that we tend to do partnerships with or any business for, we want them to say that they're better for doing business with us because it makes them money. And the way that we do that is by just ensuring that people get what matters most. And so my biggest thing is just to emphasize that that point of caring for and cultivating what matters most. And that's a good product or service with good people, of course, backing that.
Thank you, Brady and Johnny.
Yeah, thanks. I love these because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about, really just sitting down and getting forced to think about it. But I think the key is to be able to adapt. You got to be able to, as Sharon said, you got to throw the playbook out the window. We have, we had a pre-COVID raise. We're in the middle of a round. It's now since pivoted, but we need, and we literally are pivoting laterally, and we have a piece of fitness equipment that is literally about laterally exercising. It's just funny, right? It's finding the silver lining in everything. And so, but just being on your toes, being malleable, and being driven, and having a mission with a ton of espresso. My teeth are so stained because of how much espresso I drink, especially during COVID. But being able to adapt, and having patience. So, and embracing the technology because it's here to stay. So,
thank you, Johnny and Stephen.
I want to key off of the pivot mention that Johnny made. I mean, I think you've got to do everything that the other panelists said, and you just have to remain open to the opportunities. Things are different now. How are they different? Take your idea, and you think that people are gonna adopt this thing, test it out, see what people really like. As an investor, you said that you have a lot of early stage investors. Look for the teams that are willing to adapt and able to adapt to the new situation and profit from it. Don't stop investing. Don't just stop writing checks. There are entrepreneurs out there who are creating incredible products. And, I think you can probably get in some deals now while everyone else is afraid that you couldn't have gotten into before. So all across the value chain is opportunity that didn't exist before. So ferreting it out, testing the waters first, and then jumping in and pushing. There's going to be some really big wins happening, and this is always when they happen. That's the comment I'm going to close with, is that everybody, when things are on the up, everybody knows what the opportunities are, and it's already too late. Right now, when things are on the down and when it's chaotic out there, is when the big opportunities happen.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you all. So I actually inspire you to join our different formats of interaction. We also have pitch competitions and online roadshows for projects to promote themselves and have direct communication with investors, as well as keynotes and masterclasses. Johnny, you wanted to comment on something?
Oh, no, thank you so much. This was great. This was fun.
Okay, just a bit of a feedback on an online session, just a couple of words from each. How do you find our today's event, or do you think it could be helpful for you or your insights, Sharon?
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for including me. It's great to be connected to you guys all over the world. It just makes you remember what a small world it is, and it's lovely to meet you all. Good luck.
Thank you. Brady?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's great because, I see how there's always more people that have some good experience or perspective that you don't. And, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn, and we're all staying busy, and that's great. I hope to be able to connect with more and more experts that know these emerging technologies so that we can implement it in some of the real problems going on in the world.
Thank you. And Stephen, do you find it helpful in terms of using this type of brainstorming sessions?
Absolutely. It's just like Brady was saying, it opens your mind and it makes you think a little bit more broadly. It's very easy to just work on what you're working on, but getting out there and hearing about people's experience all over the world, in Texas, in the UK or Ireland, in New York. It's very mind expanding, and that to me is invaluable. And also, I want to be on that drone in your screensaver.
Thank you so much. And Johnny, do you have any feedback before we close?
No, thank you so much. This was a delight.
Great. Thank you all. And I wish you good luck for the rest of the week. And in several minutes, we will have another panel discussion with investors on business models and pivots in the new era of pandemic, but also sector-wise difference and specific. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.
Guys.